curiosity to start finding little nooks and coves and beaches along Lake Erie. And I'd go down around sunset, and I'd have my Sony Handycam ready, and the big ball of light went by. I was ready to film it.
Interesting. Were you scared the first time you saw a UFO like that?
Yeah. Actually, it's not. And plus, this isn't like what a typical UFO sighting is, which we can get into that, how the phenomenon presents. But I didn't know what I was witnessing. I was like, because it's not your typical saucer UFO made out of metal with nuts and bolts. It looks like a little miniature supernova, it looks like a ball of fire, really. So, yeah, I'll tell you, sometimes I would be watching it, and a beam of light would come out of it, and it would, scan the whole shore, go right over me, and that really freaked me out, because like I said, I didn't know what it was, so I'm thinking, hell, is that the Coast Guard, and they're, checking me out, or, but after a while, I just got used to it. I went down so often, and I got to the point, actually, I really don't like filming them, because imagine that this beautiful ball of multi-dimensional colored light is right out in front of you, and you're looking at it through a little black and white viewfinder, and it's hard to keep them in frame, I had to learn to take the autofocus off my camera, because if you lose them and they go out of frame and the camera has to refocus, you're done, But I got to the point where I knew I had amassed quite a library of UFO footage. So I would tell them, listen, unless you do something different, unless you come in closer or do some type of behavior that I haven't seen before, I'm not even picking up my camera. I'm going to sit here and enjoy the night. Sure enough, that they always made it a point to come in closer or do something. Yeah, it's not for the meek.
Now, did they ever come close enough where you could actually describe what one of them looked like at all? Or is it just a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this gets into a strange subject. Are you familiar with the subject of the Skinwalker?
Oh, yes.
Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh, yes.
Well, do you know about Bigelow Aerospace then? Who... they're the ones that bought the ranch, and they're also the ones that the Pentagon paid $22 million for the secret Pentagon UFO program. Well, they contacted me in 2011. His name, he was investigator Gary Hernandez, and he said, we know that you're in contact with the real thing because we've been studying it over the Skinwalker Ranch for about 25 years now. But what you need to realize is over the Skinwalker Ranch, they were called Skinwalkers because the Native American Indians of that area, they would see these balls of light come down, but then they would take on the biological life form of a giant wolf or a giant deer. But investigator Hernandez pointed me towards the UK Ministry of Defense, and they had declassified some footage saying that the real deal, as far as they were concerned, is these orbs of light. 3 of them could come together and create the shape of a giant triangular craft that accounts for these giant triangular crafts that are being seen worldwide right now. But if you take into account then, the 2 biggest authorities on this planet on the subject being the Pentagon, Bigelow Aerospace, and the UK Ministry of Defense is saying that these orbs of light can take on anything in our physical reality, from biological to technological, from a giant wolf to a giant triangular UFO, and anything in between, So I've seen them take on the typical triangular craft shape. I've seen them become a giant deer in front of my face. I was down there one night, and there was a ball of light very close. And right when it just blinked out of existence, right in front of me, right out of the shadows, came this most giant deer, and it walked right by me. I could have put my hand out as it went by and petted it on its side, but I kind of acted like it didn't even know I was there. It was totally unaffected by my presence. But They've come into my existence as people. Like I said, they can become anything that they want in this reality to communicate what they need to communicate with those chosen ones who, they said it's really important. If you want communication with these beings, you can't react in anger or fear. It affects their beingness in ways we can't comprehend at the moment.
I agree with you. Now, going back to Skinwalker Ranch, originally we had the grandson. James, didn't we have the grandson on our show? And you interviewed him too, and I interviewed him, if I remember right.
Yeah, I believe he was maybe a nephew or grandson, one of the two. But yeah, we did have him on, and I can't think of his name offhand, but yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was rather interesting. He actually was on the show a couple of times. But his grandfather met Howard Hughes, which Howard Hughes actually put the money up originally, to buy that property. And it was like the number one spot worldwide where people gathered you look at UFOs. It was like the hot spot of the world where people would go there and they would see UFOs on a regular basis.
Yeah, what I found out from Bigelow themselves, who ended up buying the ranch, is, like I said, they know the exact same phenomenon is also over Lake Erie. And other places, like I learned, he told me Niagara Falls is another hot spot in Mexico, the other side of Canada. It's actually a worldwide phenomenon, and it's really fascinating. Did he get into what Bigelow called poltergeist activity?
No, we didn't.
At the Skinwalker Ranch? No,
we were talking about it when how it got created. What it was like up to, James, wasn't it up to around the 60s when it was sold the first time?
Yeah, it was. But he was talking, it was early 60s, I believe. But he was talking also about how his grandfather in the 50s, I think mid-50s, that place would become a place from, a couple hundred people to 10,000 people on a weekend.
Oh, wow.
Howard Hughes would fly in there just to observe it, too. On a regular basis. It was rather, like I said, it was a hot spot of the world where people gathered and saw these strange lights and UFOs.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was like across the board phenomenon. There was like Bigfoot, ghosts, everything paranormal. So I'm glad you know about it. The poltergeist activity. They said that the scientists that Robert Bigelow brought into that ranch, that were living there, so they'd have to go to the grocery store, and they would come home and unpack all their groceries in the cabinets and into the refrigerator. And then the guy said he'd walk in the next room and go, oh, you know what, I'm going to go back and grab a Pepsi. They'd walk back into the kitchen, and everything was back in the grocery bags. Like this phenomenon would mess with them in that fashion, and there's a lot of other examples of that kind of phenomenon. But, no one asks, what's it like when you meet a multidimensional being? It's not like meeting, like I said, with these orbs of light too. That's what they look like before they take on biological or technological shape. So when you come in contact with a multidimensional being, the communication, the NSA calls it topological thinking. It's like the communication can come from anything or anyone, and synchronicity is a big aspect of once you start paying attention to strange coincidences and like cosmic synchronicity, it grows until all doubt is removed that something is in contact with you, Then that's a whole nother learning method of like, well, what is it? What is this? Whatever it is you want to call it that, we've now become in contact with and have communication.
Interesting. Now, okay, when you saw that UFO originally, when you went out and take that break, from band practice, and you saw the UFO, then when was the next time you saw one, and when did it start getting more often and stuff like that?
You know what? It's almost daily over that area. It grew to the point that once my story started to break and in 2011, hundreds of people started going down to the lake, and it made it all the way to MSNBC covered it because, hundreds of people were going down and witnessing this. And it's really interesting because at that time, Bigelow had funneled a lot of money into MUFON because truly, even the Pentagon giving $22 million to Bigelow, it was to create what's called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies. And truly, it was to bring in investigators to try to find people who was in contact with this intelligence, even more so than trying to find new propulsion systems. That's why they contacted me. But it was almost nightly. Sometimes nothing would show up, and then I just enjoyed a nice night down at the lake. It was weird because, like I said, I grew up near Lake Erie, and growing up, it's almost like people that actually live there, like, you kind of forget it's even there and forget to enjoy it. And because of going down there to film UFOs, I really got addicted just being there for the sunset, and UFOs showing up became kind of secondary. I just love going down there and spending my time down there. A lot of people thought I was weird, like, what the hell are you doing down at the lake, family and friends and whatnot. And I'm like, hell, at least I'm not out at a bar somewhere,
Oh, yeah. Now, like, the first time you saw one, okay, down at the lake, what did you feel? Do you remember what rushed through you?
Yeah, it's a feeling of bliss. It's almost like, I know this sounds cliche or something, but like they have a love rate. Matter of fact, there's some people in my backyard at one time, and one flew off the lake. We could see it coming, and it flew right over the backyard. And one of my friends that was there, he broke out into tears. He was like, oh my God, that felt so amazing. Like, there's a feeling that it's associated, like a higher consciousness that is, sometimes I totally forget that the camera's recording what I'm saying. And boy, people have said my UFO footage sounds like Cheech and Chong's excellent UFO adventure. I just get so excited, and they do have a feeling to it, but some of the phenomenon, it takes a little bit to wrap your head around. There's really no process in it. Like, I've seen them come up out of Lake Erie and then ignite into a ball of light and take off. I've seen a ball of light come down into Lake Erie, and it's almost like, it's coming down, and all of a sudden you can see its reflection on the lake, and then it gets lower and lower, and all of a sudden it just disappears. So it went down into the lake. I can't tell you, the story has got so many aspects, and I tend to go down rabbit holes, but
that's
the NSA
fine.
told me, you know what's underneath you in that area. And I said, no, not really. And they said it's the world's oldest underground base, and it's not ours.
That is probably it. Now, we got to go to break for the radio station, so you got about a 2.5 minute if you want to get a cup of Java or something to drink. We'll be back with Michael talking about, his encounters. So stay tuned to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Maggot was a biker and drove his motorcycle very fast. Drove a big chop Pilot with a gang color jacket and ran down Citizens for laughs. He had an old lady named Petula who packed an automatic 45 gun. They had just come up from California where they'd shot 6 cops for fun. Jackie thought it was the best there was, as down the interstate he saw, till the day he tangled with the county sheriff who they all called 104. It was late on a Thursday evening, and Jake, he was feeling kind of mean, cause he just run out of his favorite drug, the one called amphetamine. So we sauntered up to Petula, and he said, say, baby, let's split. There's a little gas station on down the road that might be fun to hit. So they drove up to the station, and they both jumped off of Jake's ride. They were up